Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. You will hear from Kevin O'Leary. You will hear from former President Donald Trump. You will also hear from a number of constitutional and law scholars, all condemning a very absurd and outlandish decision in New York. The fraud trial will be overturned eventually on appeals. So there are numerous appeal courts. There's two that he has to go through. The highest one, according to Jonathan Turley and according to Alan Dershowitz and according to others, Trump will be victorious. He will not have to pay the $355 million or fine. He will not be barred from doing business in New York. This is all nonsense. It's a very petulant and malicious prosecution pertaining to a real estate mogul or a real estate billionaire that does the exact same things as every other real estate developer in New York. These are all legal. These are negotiations that are private, where banks and the developer negotiate and decide on the ultimate value of holdings. And by the way, the ultimate value is appraised by the lender. That's why there were no victims in this case and everyone made money. That's exactly what everyone does, even if you're selling the home. You're selling your house, you have to get it appraised. Well, that's a little bit, tiny bit different. You have to get it appraised, but if you don't like the appraisal, you can just simply say, I'm not doing the deal unless it's sold for a lot more money, which is exactly what Trump and everyone else does. They oftentimes go above whatever the appraised value is when negotiating with a lender or a person who wants to buy a property. Hit subscribe to this channel. There's literally nothing illegal with what Trump did. You'll hear from a bunch of people right now. This is the New York Post. Kevin O'Leary slams Trump's civil ruling as un-American and a shock to the entire real estate industry. Okay, you are going to see, unfortunately, a whole lot of business leave New York, billions of dollars, billions, if this isn't appealed. So hit subscribe to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, other publications. Go to hagoodman.com. I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight as well. Let's get to former President Donald Trump right now.
Thank you very much. It's a very sad day for, in my opinion, the country. A New York State judge just ruled that he's crooked as you could get, and a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount. But this is a very dishonest man. This is a man that's been overturned already on this case 4 times. But a crooked New York State judge just ruled that I have to pay a fine of $355 million for having built a perfect company. Great cash, great buildings, great everything. It affects New York. It's mostly talking about New York, where we have a totally corrupt attorney general. She campaigned on the fact that I will get Trump, I will get Trump. Everybody's seen it. Letitia James, they've all seen it. Well, we'll be appealing, but more important than that, this is Russia, this is China, this is the same game. All comes out of the DOJ, it all comes out of Biden. It's a witch hunt against his political opponent, the likes of which our country has never seen before. You see it in third world countries, banana republics, but you don't see it here. So I just want to say this. You build a great company. There was no fraud. The banks all got their money, 100%. They love Trump. They testified that Trump is great customer, one of our best customers. They testified beautifully. And the judge knows that. He's just a corrupt person. And we knew that from the beginning. We knew it right from the beginning because he wouldn't give it to the commercial division. This judge thought Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million and it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. So we realized that. He ruled against me before he even got the case. He ruled against me. He said I was guilty. He didn't know what I was guilty of.
You will hear some propaganda pertaining to Mar-a-Lago from Democrats, from media. The judge, and we'll see here, I want to show you really quickly, and hit subscribe if you're new to this channel. The judge utilized a city appraisal of Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. Okay? Then they split hairs, PolitiFact, and they say false. The judge didn't utilize the judge didn't appraise Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. What happened was it was a city appraisal that valued it at $18 million because it was also a country club, and therefore because it was a country club and not a family home, there was an issue with the appraisal, or it was a tax assessment, and they were assessing the tax value of the property based on it being a country club. And so, or based on it either being a country club or a family home, and therefore it was only $18 million because of the tax assessment. Okay? The tax assessment in Florida found that it was $18 million. The judge utilized that value. Okay? Then PolitiFact says false. The judge never valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. Yes, he did. He utilized the same tax assessment during the trial, okay, to try to say that Trump overvalued his properties. The problem is that the judge and everyone involved, or at least the court, Democrats prosecuting Trump, knew very well that if he were to sell Mar-a-Lago, it would be worth $500-600 million. It wouldn't be worth $18 million when he tried to sell the property. They used a tax assessment, and even though the court itself didn't assess the tax value, they still utilized the tax assessment. Then the media says false. The judge never valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. Yes, the court did. It utilized the tax assessment in a disingenuous effort to say that Trump even lied about his own residence, which obviously in an open market, in the real estate market, if he were to sell that, would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That is how media and the political establishment lie to you all the time. Did the court itself assess Mar-a-Lago at $18 million? No. Did they utilize that number in a way to get Trump? Yes. But let's continue.
Before he even got the case. And Letitia James, that's another case altogether. She's a horribly corrupt attorney general, and it's all having to do with election interference. There were no victims because the banks made a lot of money. They made $100 million. And by the way, I paid approximately $300 million in taxes as the migrants come in and they take over New York. I paid over this period of years over $300 million in taxes. And they want me out. Oh, let's see if we can get them out. These are radical left Democrats. They're lunatics. And it's election interfering. So I just want to thank you for being here. We'll appeal. We'll be successful, I think, because, frankly, if we're not successful, New York State is gone. People are moving out of New York State. And because of this, they're going to move out at a much faster rate. They used a statute. It's a consumer fraud statute that's never been used for a thing like this before. They used it on me because I'm running for president. I'm beating Biden by a lot. We're beating not only the Republicans, we're beating Biden by a lot. The poll came out today, we're up 20 points on Biden. If I weren't running, none of this stuff would have ever happened. None of these lawsuits would have ever happened. I would have had a nice life. But I enjoy this life for a different reason. We're going to make America great again. These are corrupt people. These are people that shouldn't be allowed to do the things they do. And they're using this as weaponization against a political opponent who's up a lot in the polls. and always will be, because I'm competing with a man who can't put two sentences together, who doesn't know what he's doing. And we're heading into a third world war because of this guy. We have to win this election. They're doing everything possible to step in our way, but we're not going to stand for it. So thank you very much. We will get back to work. It's a ridiculous award. Listen, a fine of $355 million for doing a perfect job, for having paid back a loan with no defaults, with no problems. The banks were totally, at the trial they testified. We had an expert witness from the Stern School at NYU that made a statement. And I was very honored by his statement. He's one of the most respected people anywhere in the country for doing this kind of thing, expert witness. He said, this is one of the greatest financial statements I have ever witnessed before. And he talked about even the detail. So my numbers actually were extremely conservative. They saw this, so what the judge did is he brought down certain values like Mar-a-Lago, made it ridiculous. But the expert, after having all of this, testified it's one of the best financial statements he's ever seen. And I was honored by that. But I also knew we have a corrupt judge. He's not a respected man. And again, I said before, he's been overturned on this case by the appellate division 4 times already. It's a record. Nobody's ever been overturned on one case 4 times. And I think very importantly, and I think ultimately the most important, we've employed tens of thousands of people in New York, and we pay taxes like few other people have ever paid in New York, and they don't care about that. It's a state that's going bust. It's a state that's going bust because everybody's leaving, and it's all headed up by Biden, who's destroying our country. So this is Russia, this is China, this is what you've been reading about all your lives, and it's happening right here in our country. Thank you very much. We will stop it. We will make America great again. You have my word. Thank you very much.
President Trump, sell any of the assets to pay.
So there are already articles being written on, and by the way, to my super chat, thank you. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel. We are moving, ladies and gentlemen. We might get to 300,000 subs before November. It's possible with your help. To read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, other publications, go to hagoodman.com. To my super chat, thank you. And to the members on this channel, thank you. So there already are articles. This is a Newsweek article about Trump winning the appeal. And you're going to hear from Kevin O'Leary, who also states that he's going to win on appeal. New York, like Los Angeles, like major cities in the world, need real estate developers. These real estate developers deal in billions and billions of dollars. Okay, these developers and the people who build these high-rise buildings and hotels, these aren't paid by city tax dollars. These aren't individuals paid by tax dollars. Okay, these are people who engage in capitalism, just like the YouTube channels on the left that make millions a year that pretend they're socialism. They're socialist or communist. But you have Trump and others in New York that helped build New York. They help make New York a beautiful, scenic venue to visit. Okay? They build hotels, skyscrapers. They take care of the buildings, and they buy and sell property. That's what keeps a city alive. You can see what happens. There are cities in Michigan, cities throughout the country that have been abandoned. Okay? You need to keep your city alive by building it through real estate and by ensuring that people can, go to hotels, like luxury hotels or commercial real estate and, office buildings. And so that's one of the reasons why everyone, including all the Democrats, went after AOC when she kicked out Amazon, the Amazon headquarters from New York. Okay, they don't understand. Democrats don't understand that Trump in New York has given people more jobs and has paid more taxes and his work and his business and his capitalism has resulted in more tax dollars than anything that AOC or anyone else on the left has done in New York. Okay, he's actually enriched and made people wealthier in New York. Donald Trump has. The problem here is that they're trying to say he lied to Banks when Banks didn't even call him a liar. Banks never called Trump a liar. Banks never sued Trump. They're utilizing prosecutorial discretion in the most overt manner to get their political opponents. Trump was impeached. Trump was impeached because of a phone call. These Democrats are going after Trump in every Democratic Party dominated city in this country. Okay? You could say the special counsel is utilizing the Florida venue because Mar-a-Lago's in Florida. But other than that, Gilmore, thank you. Other than that, Trump did not commit a crime. On the other hand, you had Clinton, who I think will replace Biden eventually, but you had Biden, who literally committed crimes. But the special counsel stated that he didn't have the memory or the cognitive ability to be charged. And so, anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. You'll hear right now, you will hear Kevin O'Leary.
Well, let's leave out Trump for a minute, and let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere. So if you're a developer and you've got a building on a block anywhere in America and it's worth, let's say, $500 million, and you want to build a building right beside it, you go to the bank and say, this building is worth $500 million. I'd like to borrow a construction finance loan against this asset, and I want you to tell me it's worth $500 million too. And the bank negotiates with you and says, well, no, we think it's worth $400 million. And you fight it out. You're always trying to show your assets in the brightest light with the sunshine you could possibly determine for them. You want them to be worth the very most, because you're only going to get a 40 or 50% loan to value, as it's called. Then you borrow that money. In the case of a $500 million asset, maybe you get $250 million, and you build a new building with a construction finance loan. And so that's what this case is all about. And by the way, forget about Trump. Every single real estate developer everywhere on earth does this. They always talk about their asset being worth a lot, and the bank says no. And that's just the way it is. So in this case, when I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not pro or con, or I don't care about the politics, who lost money? Nobody. The bank got paid back the construction finance loan, and a new building was built. And if you're going to sue this case and win, you got to sue every real estate developer everywhere. This is all they do. This is what they do all day long, every day. So I don't think this thing will ever survive appeal, regardless of what the fine is. This doesn't even make sense. Now, look, I know Trump's got a lot of problems in other indictments and everything else, but this, if you're a real estate developer, you're watching this, you're saying, what is this? This is ridiculous.
Well, you know, the thing is, most people
problem. This works, and I want to borrow apartments in it, stabilized assets. This is what the real estate in Los Angeles have to sue. I mean, I get it. I totally get it. And you're making a valid point. But it's humorous in the sense that you have to sue every single real estate developer here in Miami, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Detroit, in Dallas. This is what they do every day. This is what the real estate game is all about. It's getting construction financing against stabilized assets. When a building is fully leased out and everybody's renting it and you've got offices or you've got apartments in it, it's called a stable asset. And you value it and you go to the bank and say, this asset is worth $500 million. And I want to borrow $250 million against it. And the bank always negotiates with you. Everybody understands how this works, and that's why I think it's going to be very, very hard to make this stick in reality later. This is not Of all the things that Trump's being accused of and being litigated for and indicted for, this is not his problem. This is not his problem. He's got much worse problems than this. This is, for real estate developers, this is a joke.
It's fascinating to me.
The first question, is everybody doing it in real estate? Yes, everybody's doing it. Not only domestically, all around the world. This is how it works, okay? Now, you don't want to be Donald Trump and get embroiled in what looks like, I mean, it looks to me in this presidential race, and I'm not in favor of this, that the courts are being used to try and sway voters on both sides of the equation. I don't understand why we're trying to, impeach Biden. What a waste of time. And his son and all this stuff and all of this litigation on Trump hasn't moved the needle for either of these candidates. People don't care about this noise anymore. And it's obvious when you look at these poll results. And so why keep doing it? I mean, let the voters vote and decide on the merits of both. I'd rather hear policy. I'd rather not hear about Trump's real estate woes in New York. I'd like to hear his tax plan. I want to hear about security at the border. I'd like to hear foreign policy from both of these candidates so I can make a decision as a voter on which of these people should be president. And the rest of this stuff is just horrific noise.
So Kevin O'Leary is 100% right. Every real estate developer does it because it's legal. It is a legal thing to do. Okay? It's negotiating. You're negotiating with the bank. Trump had every right to negotiate with the bank in the manner that he did. And if the bank had a problem, whether it's Deutsche Bank that lent him billions.com, hello, whether it's Deutsche Bank that lent him billions or any other bank, they could have sued Donald Trump. They didn't do so because they made money. They made a lot of money. They made hundreds of millions of dollars from Donald Trump. Okay? This is, and Kevin O'Leary was talking about this. He was right about this. You shouldn't be suing and indicting your political rivals. The problem, however, is that if one political side actually commits crimes and they indict the other political side because they don't want their side to be indicted for actual crimes, so they're going to go after the other political side under this false pretense, this prosecutorial discretion that's an abomination. That's what you see is taking place. Biden can easily be impeached because the New York Post, in addition to the Senate investigation, unearthed enough evidence of foul play. Okay, Hunter was on the board of directors of a very corrupt company, or allegedly a corrupt company, in a country that was invaded while Biden was in office. Okay, then you have emails which with clear bribery and graft within the emails. How can you use your influence on the company's behalf? Is the New York Post reporting? They published the article. The New York Post published the article on the emails showing bribery schemes. Actually, every one of their articles show bribery schemes and graft. But there's literally an email, thank you for introducing me to your father, which proved that Biden lied, both of them did, that Joe gets 10% of the earnings, and that he's the big man in these emails. It's the laptop that shows all of this. Trump didn't write this. The Kremlin didn't write this. It's Hunter and his own laptop. Okay, and then you have a firearms charge where he lost his weapon, and I think the girlfriend threw it in a trash can right next to a school. Okay, I mean, you have so many different opportunities to indict Democrats for actual crimes. So what they do is they get all of media, Democratic Party prosecutors who went after Trump to go after Trump because they're afraid he'll go after them when he becomes president again. And that's the only way they can actually possibly defeat Trump, is indicting him for everything under the sun, pretending that they aren't actually committing crimes, and very soon, which is exactly what it says on the title, very soon, Trump will win on appeal. Okay, you can't lie if you're saying that you believe something will happen in the future. This is just basic logic. This is basic, very minimal, logical, rational thought. I have every right to say that I believe something is going to take place in the future, or that I think that the Supreme Court has already ruled 9-0 against Trump. Against the Colorado, because when that happens, when Colorado, whether it's 8-2 or 8-1 or 7-2 or 8-1 in favor of Trump overturning the Colorado ban, hit subscribe to this channel and watch. Trump is going to regain the Oval Office. And I'll be right yet again. He won't step even 1 foot in prison. I'll be right yet again. I said that he would be convicted. I was right. And I'm telling everyone that he'll win the appeals. I'll be right. Now everyone is saying that Trump will get the Colorado Supreme Court decision. Okay? And so anyway, let's continue. But the point is, you can definitely indict. Trump doesn't have a laptop with incriminating evidence. Biden does. He doesn't have the luxury of 50 intelligence officials going to bat for him. Okay? You know that Democrats actually commit the crimes when 50 intelligence officials come out of nowhere to defend the Democrat. So.
So with that, we bring back in constitutional law attorney Jonathan Turley, GWU law professor and a Fox News contributor, and Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary and Fox News contributor. Jonathan, the impact on the other people involved here. Alan Weisselberg, as I said, longtime business associate of the former President Trump, already was convicted in a separate case against the Trump organization, and the impact on the two younger members of the Trump family by not being allowed to incorporate or serve as officers of New York corporations for 2 years.
Well, they can certainly get around this. There's other jurisdictions that they can incorporate in, places like Delaware, and they can easily shift their business. The question is going to be, as Ari noted earlier, how many businesses are likely to shift on their own? New York is already viewed as fairly hostile for businesses that are moving out. There's an exodus from the state. This can't be good in trying to stem that flow. And the issue, again, is not that the Trump organization did not inflate or undervalue properties. This is a raw partisan exercise by James. She made it that way in the election. I have no doubt in my mind that no other company in New York would have been subject to this type of draconian exercise and would have been subject to this type of ruling. And that should give people pause in New York, particularly in the bars. Is this what we've become? And it's going to have an impact on other businesses because they have to be able to trust that there is a neutrality in their laws, that they're not just going to become pawns in political games by figures like James.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Americans expect. They expect to be treated equally. They expect that the law applies to everyone equally. And we hear that a lot thrown around these days. But it seems, unfortunately, as Don Jr. points out in his post, that it doesn't feel that way a lot of the time anymore. And I think that's one of the things that is propelling the campaign of former President Donald Trump again this time around. And I just want to play this. This is from Judge Engoron. This is the judge who made this decision, over $350 million against the Trump Organization today. Here he is back in March of 2015 giving a speech at CUNY Local College here, Queensboro. And he talks about the fact that sometimes you don't really need a jury. Sometimes it's better, as you can hear his own words here, but he's essentially saying not to have one, and that sometimes it's hard to factor out your own emotions. Listen closely to what Judge Engoron says here.
I'm going to say something controversial, even though I'm being taped. Juries get it wrong a lot. I have a tool that I can deal with that. It's called jury notwithstanding the verdict, judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I'm an impartial referee, but it's hard to factor out my own emotions.
Yeah, I like it when I get to decide on my own. And sometimes it's hard to factor out my emotions. Carrie Kupek is joining us now. Carrie, I hope you heard that soundbite because I know you were just miking up. But your reaction to that in light of what we...
So you have a situation where Democrats are going after Trump because that's the only thing they can do. They can't talk about the border. They can't talk about the economy. If the economy is so great, why don't Democrats talk about the economy? Why don't left-leaning channels talk about the economy? Why don't they talk about how great the economy is or how great foreign policy is? Or, why isn't Biden, or why do they want to replace, why do Democrats want to replace Biden at all? There's a question. They're literally going after Trump and saying he's a menace to democracy, while they actively search for a replacement for Biden, who was the most popular candidate of all time, and they try to prevent Trump from being on the ballot across the country. Think about that for a second. Think about that. You just heard Jonathan Turley. Let's go ahead and listen to Alan Dershowitz.
I didn't make it up. I wish I were creative and original, but I got it from, obviously, Letitia James' campaign. She ought to be brought up before the bar. You should not have an elected prosecutor campaigning on the promise to get a particular defendant. Now, if she didn't get him, she would lose the election. This is a variation of Stalin and Beria back in the 1930s, when the head of the KGB says to Stalin, "Show me the man, I'll find you the crime." This is show me the man. We know who it is. She told us who it was, Donald Trump, and we'll find you the fraud, even though there was no harm. Generally in our legal system, particularly under the system of equity, where you don't get a jury trial, if it's no harm, no foul, no harm, no fine. But when you have no damages at all, usually you can do a multiple. Say there's $1 million of damages, you can give $3 million fine. But when you have zero damages, no matter how many times you multiply it, 0 plus and times whatever is all still zero. So it's outrageous. Now, I don't know whether it's going to be reversed in the appellate division. The appellate division is also elected judges, mostly by Democrats, in a county which is 85% Democrat. The New York Court of Appeals, which is the highest court, may indeed come and give justice. Generally, fines like this are reduced considerably, and that may very well happen in this case. But this tells us so much about the politicization of our justice system, the weaponization of our system. And it's so dangerous because it will mean that business people are not going to want to run for office, because they know if they run for office, Partisans are going to go after them, investigate them, figure out some way of getting them, like overvaluing. This is a judge which overevaluates when he wants to, $350 million for no damage, then underevaluates when he wants to, Mar-a-Lago $18 million. He's just willing to manipulate the numbers to get him to the result he wanted. I hope the courts will look at this with a very, very, very stringent eye.
Let me stay on the issue, Greg Jarrett, of valuation.
What I don't understand is the following, okay? Here's what I don't understand. If you had the second, by the way, the second that ladies and gentlemen, that Democrats, Kevin, Paul Bartlett, hello, Kevin, thank you. The second that Democrats feel a conflict of interest, they want a Supreme Court judge to recuse himself. They want Clarence Thomas to recuse himself immediately. The second that there's a criminal case against Hunter or Joe or Hillary or anyone, immediately Democrats say this is partisan. It's a Republican right-wing, conspiratorial effort. It's completely biased. But when they indict Trump, it's the rule of law, and nobody's above the rule of law. Kevin, thank you again to my super chat. Thank you. So the point, ladies and gentlemen, is the following. The point is, if you look at the actual criminal behavior, it's not Trump. It's Democrats that get caught with emails, laptops, private servers. Trump doesn't get caught with emails, and when they tried to get him on servers, that was a lie. Democrats literally fabricated that. So, I mean, you have to ask yourself, who's committing the crimes? Okay, when they say Trump is not immune from prosecution, apparently Democrats are immune for the moment because they never get indicted for major scandals. For example, the classified data with Hunter and Joe. The special counsel stated that, well, Joe lacked cognitive abilities, so we're not going to. So when Clinton had servers with top secret intel on them, the Honorable James Comey stated, well, no reasonable prosecutor would indict. Then, when Biden mishandled classified data, the special prosecutor said, well, no, he didn't have the cognitive ability to know what he was doing. He had memory issues. So we can't take his testimony at face value because of the memory issues. They give Democrats the benefit of the doubt. Media is an extension of the Democratic Party. That's why you get these dumb polls. A poll of 51% of Americans say that Trump being convicted would be very fair. 51%. That's with only negative media coverage. And by the way, you have 100% of, you have only comedians and late night going after Trump. They never go after Biden. And almost certainly they're committing campaign finance violations. If you're a late night comedian and your producers or your directors or your writers are discussing politics with Democrats in Congress or Democratic Party staffers, congressional staffers, or operatives in any way, you're committing a campaign finance violation, which happens every single night in the form of free advertising. Democrats get free advertising to the tune of billions upon billions of dollars every year from late night comedians, from Saturday Night Live, from TV shows. And it's like, from The View. I mean, it's unbelievable to me how nobody questions this unholy alliance between Democrats, media, and Hollywood. I don't understand. I don't get it. But let's continue. Let's continue with Greg Jarrett.
Because they're very subjective. The Deutsche Bank executive was 100% right. Any lending institution, and in the case of Donald Trump, you're talking about deals that are hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Nobody's going to lend you that much or insure that much of a property without doing their own valuation. They have a fiduciary responsibility to do so. There was a disclaimer that said, don't trust our valuations within the application. It was in every single one. Now, nobody was hurt. Nobody was hurt. They all got paid back on time with interest that they had agreed to. The only one really most guilty of valuation problems was the judge. The judge to take $1 billion property and stick with the $18 million valuation. Please, I'll buy that right now. I will find $18 million and I will buy Mar-a-Lago for $18 million and I'll put it on the market tomorrow for $1 billion. I'd like to be a billionaire one day.
You might get a porta potty for $18 million in Palm Beach. Look, the damages here, like the judge, are daft and asinine. Because under the law, damages must always reflect the measurable harm. Here, there was no harm. Not a single person testified they were injured. Just the opposite. The lending banks made huge profits. So how in the world a consumer protection statute could be used to hold liable a businessman for a consumer harm that doesn't exist is one of the great legal mysteries. So I think at the very least, the New York's highest court should knock it down, even though the entire court is composed of 7 justices appointed by Democrats. But Letitia James knew she was playing with house money here, right? Liberal courts and a liberal trial judge, Arthur Engoron, who wore his anti-Trump bias on his sleeve, arrogant, smug, obtuse. In his ruling, he pronounced Trump guilty of fraud, ignoring completely all the bank executives said, we weren't defrauded or deceived. He said Trump falsified financial statements, ignoring Trump never prepared the financials. He hired top lawyers, accountants, real estate experts. They calculated the assets. And then the banks, as you point out, Sean, did due diligence. They concluded Trump had more than enough to secure the loans. They wanted to lend him more money. They still do. So I think Engoron has managed to prove Charles Dickens right when he wrote the law is an ass.
Yeah. All right.
So Trump will win on appeal. And this is not about, look, when they indict Trump, they do so because they're the ones who actually commit crimes. We know this because 50 intelligence officials come out of nowhere to cover the criminal activity within that laptop. The political component is pretty obvious for anyone to see. You'd have to be stupid not to understand what's going on. Trump doesn't have the luxury of the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, Saturday Night Live, late night comedians, and 50 intel officials. An entire political and public relations system caters to Democrats. Okay, they get away with committing actual crimes. And there's a disingenuous element to the left, because I used to be on the left for a long time. You have the far left claiming that they're against Democrats because like Bernie Sanders, for example, Bernie Sanders was cheated. And the DNC emails showed that, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned because of those emails showing that Bernie Sanders was railroaded. Then the far left claims to go against media and Democrats. But if you look, everyone on the left repeats the same accusations against Trump, the same absurd nonsense that he overvalued his holdings or his real estate, when in reality he had every right to negotiate in any manner he wanted to. So these lies are repeated endlessly. He committed a rebellion. The far left says Trump committed a rebellion. They don't even think for themselves. They then pretend to go after the mainstream Democratic Party, but the far left are just tools for the mainstream Democratic Party. That's why there's no Green Party. That's why there's no independent left-leaning political party, because in a second they would be branded as treasonous, linked to the Kremlin, and they'd lose all their friends in Facebook groups or whatever, Instagram groups, and they'd be ostracized and excommunicated because they committed blasphemy against the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the actual cult, not the people who vote for Trump. If you vote for Trump and you do so despite having lifelong friends that disown you simply because you wanted a better economy and a better foreign policy, you're not part of a cult. You're doing so at you're taking a risk voting for Trump. Okay, that isn't cult-like behavior. Okay, if you just follow and adhere to groupthink and the zeitgeist of the moment, and you're afraid of backlash, then that's a problem. That's a problem. That means that you actually might be in a cult called the Democratic Party. Hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and listen to Trump really quickly again, and we'll wrap it up.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very sad day for, in my opinion, the country. A New York State judge just ruled, and he's crooked as you can get. And a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount. But this is a very dishonest man. This is a man that's been overturned already on this case 4 times. But a crooked New York State judge just ruled that I have to pay a fine of $355 million for having built a perfect company. Great cash, great buildings, great everything. It affects New York. It's mostly talking about New York, where we have a totally corrupt attorney general. She campaigned on the fact that I will get Trump, I will get Trump. Everybody's seen it. Letitia James, they've all seen it. Well, we'll be appealing, but more important than that, this is Russia, this is China, this is the same game. All comes out of the DOJ, it all comes out of Biden. It's a witch hunt against his political opponent, the likes of which our country has never seen before. You see it in third world countries, banana republics, but you don't see it here.
By the way, there's literally nothing that Trump did wrong. I mean, you heard it from Kevin O'Leary, you heard it from Alan Dershowitz, you heard it from Jonathan Turley. These are Democrats in New York, Democrats going after Trump, using statutes that they never utilized before against people. This type of, and then they say, well, Trump is unique. No. Their efforts to go after Trump are unique. Trump is being indicted under statutes throughout the country that have never been utilized in the manner they're utilized against Trump. You're supposed to have people lose money in a fraud case. That's what fraud is about. You're deceiving people and they lose money. You have to prove that you lost money in a defamation case. You have to prove that you lost something. No, everyone gained. The law states very clearly, if you gain money working with Trump or anyone, you have not committed or you have not been the victim of fraud. The law, okay, people are not above the law, but the law can't be twisted and manipulated simply to get Trump. That's why his poll numbers are up. Why is Trump indicted under 91 criminal charges and his poll numbers are up? Because people know he's not a criminal. People also know that Biden and Hunter and others engaged in clear bribery and graft schemes. That's why 50 intel officials came out of nowhere. What if 50 intelligence officials came out to defend Trump? That would never happen in a million years. Only Democrats get that because the system is geared towards protecting Democrats and getting Trump. The rule of law states that Trump is innocent. This has nothing to do with the rule of law. The rule of law has been completely manipulated by Democrats in Tammany Hall, Democratic Party run areas to simply harm Trump politically. And he's going to win on appeal. He's going to win on appeal. And when I do my videos, I will say, I'll use the words very soon, I believe this is a huge victory, that type of thing. And I have every right to do so. Because the trend is obvious. They want to replace Biden because he's so horrible. Democrats do. You think Republicans or anyone voting for Trump want to replace Trump? Not in a million years, because he's an amazing president. And he goes up against a very, very corrupt system. Even we're talking late night comedians also. We're talking major publications. They all lie through their teeth just to get Trump. That's why all of these things will be overturned on appeal, and Trump will get a 9-0 or 8-1 or 7-2 ruling on overturning the Colorado ban. He'll win on appeal here. The Colorado ban will be overturned. The Georgia case is completely dismantled, completely dismantled. The classified data case in Florida is pretty much done, with the special counsel stating that Biden lacks the cognitive ability, even though he mishandled classified data. The only thing they might actually convict him on is the hush money, and nobody will care about that because it'll be in New York. It'll be Democrats going after Trump, and Trump will gain politically. And the FEC, again, fined Clinton and the DNC, so yet again, the rule of law is not applied to Democrats for the Steele dossier. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel. I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. Let's continue.
So I just want to say this. You build a great company. There was no fraud. The banks all got their money, 100%. They love Trump. They testified that Trump is great customer, one of our best customers. They testified beautifully. And the judge knows that. He's just a corrupt person. And we knew that from the beginning. We knew it right from the beginning because he wouldn't give it to the commercial division. This judge thought Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, and it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. So we realized that. He ruled against me before he even got the case. He ruled against me. He said I was guilty. He didn't know what I was guilty of before he even got the case. And Letitia James, that's another case altogether. She's a horribly corrupt attorney general, and it's all having to do with election interference. There were no victims because the banks made a lot of money. They made $100 million. And by the way, I paid approximately $300 million in taxes as the migrants come in and they take over New York. I paid over this period of years over $300 million in taxes, and they want me out. Oh, let's see if we can get them out. These are radical left Democrats. They're lunatics, and it's election interfering. So I just want to thank you for being here. We'll appeal. We'll be successful, I think, because, frankly, if we're not successful, New York State is gone. People are moving out of New York State, and because of this, they're going to move out at a much faster rate. They used a statute. It's a consumer fraud statute that's never been used for a thing like this before. They used it on me because I'm running for president. I'm beating Biden by a lot. We're beating not only the Republicans, we're beating Biden by a lot. The poll came out today. We're up 20 points on Biden. If I weren't running, none of this stuff would have ever happened. None of these lawsuits would have ever happened. Nothing would. I would have had a nice life. But I enjoy this life for a different reason. We're going to make America great again. These are corrupt people. These are people that shouldn't be allowed to do the things they do. And they're using this as weaponization against a political opponent who's up a lot in the polls and always will be, because I'm competing with a man who can't put two sentences together, who doesn't know what he's doing. And we're heading into a third world war because of this guy. We have to win this election. They're doing everything possible to step in a way, but we're not going to stand for it. So thank you very much. We will get back to work. It's a ridiculous award. Listen, a fine of $355 million for doing a perfect job, for having paid back a loan with no defaults, with no problems. The banks were totally, at the trial they testified. We had an expert witness from the Stern School at NYU that made a statement. And I was very honored by his statement. He's one of the most respected people anywhere in the country for doing this kind of thing, expert wisdom. He said, this is one of the greatest financial statements I have ever witnessed before. And he talked about even the detail. So my numbers actually were extremely conservative. They saw this, so what the judge did is he brought down certain values like Mar-a-Lago, made it ridiculous, but the expert, after having all of this, testified it's one of the best financial statements he's ever seen, and I was honored by that. But I also knew we have a corrupt judge, he's not a respected man, and again, I said before, he's been overturned on this case by the appellate division 4 times already. It's a record. Nobody's ever been overturned on one case 4 times. And I think very importantly, and I think ultimately the most important, we've employed tens of thousands of people in New York, and we pay taxes like few other people have ever paid in New York, and they don't care about that. It's a state that's going bust. It's a state that's going bust because everybody's leaving, and it's all headed up by Biden, who's destroying our country. So this is Russia, this is China, this is what you've been reading about all your lives, and it's happening right here in our country. Thank you very much. We will stop it. We will make America great again. You have my word. Thank you very much.
If liberal Democrats were in Donald Trump's position, okay, if liberal Democrats were in Donald Trump's position, they would actually be frightened beyond belief and petrified. They would actually be there. You would, if any Democrat in Congress, any Democrat, including former presidents, if President Obama or if Bill Clinton had the negative media coverage, the 24/7 negative media coverage, and indicted under actual crimes, like you could indict Clinton for setting up servers, and there's no defense for that. You can indict Hunter and Joe for graft and bribery schemes. There's no defense for emails asking for influence. And very bizarre money trail. And if you had the Bureau and other agencies actually investigate them the way they investigate Trump, you'd find bribery and graft. People aren't giving money to Hunter because of any other reason other than Joe's influence. So it means pretty clear-cut. These are clear-cut criminal schemes. With Trump, because Democrats have these clear-cut criminal schemes, they go after Trump with everything they have, using Democratic Party prosecutors in blue states or blue cities, and then they say it's about the rule of law. The rule of law. Nobody's above the rule of law. And right when they're saying that, they say, yeah, we can't indict Biden because of memory issues. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel. God bless you all. I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern. Read the, I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern, everybody. Thank you for the super chat, Kevin. Thank you.